What is going on, everyone? I am your host, Samuel, and I am here by myself with no Kenny. That is why I'm doing the intro, and he is not. Kenny famously does the intro. He has some amazing quips, but Kenny is also, he's a very rich, he's a very powerful man. He goes on a lot of trips, and right now he's gallivanting in Scottsdale, and he's left me here to drive the podcast solo. This is the first ever Take Two podcast solo edition. Really, it's like, I guess not Take Two anymore. It's Take One, and it's me. And if there were ever a time for Kenny to be gone, it would be now. Because, one, it's my birthday week, quote unquote. So this is my birthday pod. We just did Kenny's birthday pod where he got to review the Dune 1 and Dune 2 films, which took about an hour and a half. For my birthday podcast, I am going to be going over the top 5 horror movies you probably haven't seen, probably being the little, exclamation there. But it's going to be really exciting. Hopefully, it's going to be really fun. And I hope y'all enjoy this. So let's go. So there it is. Welcome into the Take Two podcast. So weird to be by myself. This could be just an utter complete disaster, no one to talk to. But here's the good news. Kenny is not a huge horror movie guy, and I am. So I've toned down the last few years, but I'm starting to get back into horror pretty hard. But I've always been really into horror. My brother kind of groomed me, don't take that the wrong way, into enjoying horror as we grew up. He used to literally just, it was actually awful. When I was like 10, 11 years old, we'd get home, it'd be nighttime, and my brother would jump out of the car, sprint inside the house, which was completely dark, and he'd hide around a corner, and my parents would say, go ahead, go on, go inside. I'm like, he's gonna scare me, and it would terrify me. And they'd be like, just go inside, because they didn't want to get scared. So I'd walk inside, my brother would always scare the living heck out of me. And yeah, that's kind of what I grew up with. And I love horror movies so much. And so we're going to be going over the top 5 horror movies you probably haven't seen, right? There's obviously, like, talking to you, person, I'm going to mention a few movies. I'm sure someone's like, yeah, I've seen that. Obviously, I'm a horror junkie. Okay, great. This is probably for your, like, common horror fan or someone who isn't that into horror but maybe would like to check out some unique movies. This is probably going to be aimed towards you. And if you just are a huge horror fan, then you're probably going to enjoy sort of the what we talked about. This is spoiler free, so all 5 of these movies are going to be spoiler free, and I'm going to more so jump in and just highlight some of the reasons the film is good without giving anything away. And if y'all, I've also got some honorable mentions at the end we can talk about. If y'all have any that come up, feel free to share them in the chat. I'd be happy to touch base and get sidetracked on any other, lesser known horror movies if any of y'all want to talk about that. But without further ado, let's get started with my number 1 film here, and that is Revenge. Okay, very basic title, Revenge, and it's all sort of in the name. This movie's from 2018, and it is really like the film I Spit on Your Grave, which is a classic from, I believe, like the 70s or 80s. Now, I Spit on Your Grave has been remade, and it sort of launched a almost genre on its own and really introduced some stuff back in the day. And basically, for those of you who don't know what I Spit on Your Grave is, basically a woman is, sexually assaulted, to put it lightly, by a group of men, and they think they've killed her, and she comes back to try and hunt them down one by one. So it's sort of your classic revenge, your final girl, it's just one and she's alive and she's hunting people down. Okay, so take that and put it into revenge, all right? Except we're going to go a little Dennis Reynolds here for anyone who's seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He has a very famous reason for why women will sleep with him while he takes them out on his boat at sea, and he says it's because of the implication. They're all alone at sea and anything could happen, and if the girl says no, something bad could happen to her, not that he's going to do anything. So similar situation here. So this film effectively has 4 characters, and it's a woman who is the side piece for this really rich married man, and he flies her out on a helicopter to this beautiful, like, glass-cased, like, house structure out in the middle of the desert. And it's just a beautiful place, and he's there, and basically he brings this girl around and they cheat together and he loves her, and it's their whole relationship is basically sex-based. And then a few of his friends show up, and while he's away, these 2 friends end up sexually assaulting this woman. And she's a young woman, and she basically says, I want to go home. She starts freaking out. And everyone decides, the 3 men basically decide, what the easiest thing to probably do right now would be just to kill her so none of this gets out. And so the film, they basically chase this woman, and this is just the beginning of the film, I'm not going to spoil anything, but they chase this woman to the edge of this cliff, they corner her, and the main guy shoves her off this crazy high cliff. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're just breathless at this point. And the woman falls down, you're like, she's gonna die. And she gets impaled on a tree. And it goes right through her like stomach. And you're like, oh, she's dead. And there's really no way down for the guys to get to the woman. And so in the time they're trying to find a way down, surprise, surprise, she like goes into shock, and the adrenaline like wakes her up, and she's able, without getting too graphic or too detailed, to just launch herself from this tree. And crazy, then it basically turns into I Spit on Your Grave, and it's one woman against these 3 men out in the desert. And the director just does an incredible job. Okay, she is unbelievable. Everything, the sound in this film, the visuals in this film, the color palette is very bright, very neon. It is beautiful and terrifying. And essentially what happens is this desert and this beautiful house turn into sort of this killing ground, this sort of cat versus mouse, but there's 3 cats and 1 mouse. And it's this woman on pure adrenaline, and your heart is pumping the entire film. The editing is amazing, right? All the cuts are like on breath. You hear an inhale, cut. The POV swaps, like they'll go back and forth, it's just so good. There's a really famous scene, I don't want to spoil it, at the end of this film, but it's like a 90-second oneer that is one of the most tense moments I've ever seen in a horror film. Bloody, scary. I'd put this in horror thriller realm. It's just absolutely fantastic. Got a few people in the comments saying, yeah, at least we don't have to listen to Kenny talk about Dune anymore. Yeah, so change of pace from Dune last time around. We're going to get some, I'm going to hit you guys pretty hard with these pretty quickly. Now, here's the thing I'll say. There's the nice thing about this film, there really became like a decade or 2 of like, the Saw movies, the Hostel movies, which was a lot of like gore, torture, porn, and that's really like my least favorite genre. Those 3 things are the things that probably I dislike the most in horror. Those are the things we don't need to see, and I think a lot of directors sort of pull those things in for shock value, but it's really played out, and I'm just kind of over it at this point. So, like, props to this film, the whole setup, like the stuff that happens, like we're not having to see anything necessarily. We're not having to like sit through it for an agonizing amount of time. So just wanted to point that out. And just want to say this is like probably the most high octane horror thriller movies I've ever seen. It is absolutely fantastic. And, they have accents and they're from somewhere not named America. So this is sort of our touch into foreign horror, which we're going to continue with in the next one, the next recommendation. But definitely, you've got to check out Revenge. It's unbelievable. And I'll say this. This was the directorial debut, I'm pretty sure, for this director. She came out with a little movie. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, called The Substance, that came out last year, and it was, one of the most talked about horror films all year. Still is. There was the main actress. I forget her name from that film though, but she was nominated for Best Actress for that film, and I actually haven't seen it. I've been a little freaked out to see it. I do plan on seeing it. I had a friend tell me though that The Substance has one of the most disturbing sequences in film that he's ever seen. He's watched a ridiculous amount of horror. So two horror films, bringing Revenge. I haven't seen The Substance, but I've heard amazing things. Those are really high pedigree horror films right there. So just want to throw that out there before we move on to our second movie, which is High Tension. All right, this is a French horror film, and I'll keep this really simple because the plot is really simple. A college girl arrives at a remote farmhouse, and a rusty delivery truck pulls up with a killer behind the wheel. This anonymous killer that we don't know how they're involved or what their deal is. And it is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. I would definitely put it in my top 3 scariest movies I've ever seen. The cinematography is just fantastic. You're just claustrophobic the entire time. The editing is fantastic. The sound is fantastic. You have footsteps, boom, 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 silence, and then a kill might happen abruptly. There's just these crazy POV swaps throughout the film, back and forth, back and forth. Yeah, the French do horror really well. For some reason, Lauren Ash says, yes, the French are effed in the head. And this movie just keeps you off balance, okay? It doesn't feel like you can trust anything in this movie. It's one of those movies where, somebody goes under a bed. You see a victim go under a bed, and then you see the person walk in, and they're maybe going to kill a person under the bed, and then the person's gone, and maybe because of something else crazy, and you're kind of like, whoa, how'd that happen? And it's all happening so quickly, and it's so scary, and it just keeps you on your toes. And this is one of those movies that's just your heart is going to pound out of your chest. Revenge, you get that too, and it's just absolutely thrilling. You're on the edge of your seat. This is full horror though, just pure horror. The one thing I'll say about this is there are some deadly, gory kills, some scarring stuff. I watched this when I was a teenager. I started watching it with my sister when we were at home on Halloween one night, and we were kind of laughing for the first 5 or 10 minutes. We were like, this is so weird. I don't understand what's happening. It's a little trippy. And then it just turned into a blood fest, a kill fest. The first third of the movie is just home invasion. After that, it turns into freaking joyride out on the highway. And it's just terrifying. So definitely one of those movies that if you haven't seen a foreign horror film, this one is my recommendation. And it just some horror films, especially the French, they just cut a little harder. Am I going to rate these out of 10? That's a great question. I really should. So yeah, that's a great idea. Revenge, I'm giving a 9 out of 10. Revenge is amazing. The color, the setting, the directing, everything is A tier from beginning to end. And if we were to move on to number two, High Tension, I'm gonna give High Tension a 8. Excuse me. Give High Tension an 8 just because like it feels like a typical weird like home invasion horror movie. It feels very random, but it also feels very realistic at the same time. But it's also really trippy, equally scary. I, I think I think High Tension certainly an 8 is deserving there. So there's your kind of two horror foreign films, and yeah, we'll move into number three. And number three is going to be a movie I've seen at least 2 times. I'm pretty sure I've seen it 3 times now. Actually, we watched it. My wife and I watched it with some friends about a year ago, and I loved it every single time. I believe I've seen it 3 times, and every time it's just as good as the last. This movie is The Invitation. Okay, just to say this. Well, I'll explain the plot in about a sentence. I know it's not Dune. I'm not going to spend an hour and a half on the plot, but I'll give you the hook, and then I'll go into why I like the movie here. The hook here is this grieving man. He is attending a dinner party. He's bringing his current girlfriend, and the dinner party is in his old house. The party is being hosted by his ex-wife and her new partner. And if that doesn't feel weird enough, all their friends are there. And the reason this man and his ex-wife have divorced is because they had a child and the child passed away. So there's a lot of trauma for him at this house. And we get there and we just get the feeling really from beginning to end that something's up. And by the way, this movie setting's great. It takes place in this kind of beautiful modern home in like Beverly Hills, basically, like a gorgeous house up on one of these hills. And I'll say this just for myself. I am personally obsessed with dinner movies. Okay? I don't know why. Murder mystery dinners, sign me up. Like Clue, You're Next, anything like that. I'm just fully all in on. Rope by Alfred Hitchcock. I love dinner movies. They just put me on edge right away. It's like, I don't know why. With a dinner movie, it's like you get there and you're like, anything could happen here. I always feel like a big revelation is going to be dropped. Now, this movie in particular is like a slow twist of the knife. You could call it a slow burn for sure, where there's a lot of buildup, but there's all these little things that are being sprinkled in along the way that make you feel very uneasy. And I think one of the reasons I love The Invitation so much, it reminds me a lot of a film I was getting flack for the other day. Speak No Evil. Speak No Evil, I recently saw. I gave it a 10 out of 10. I loved it. The reason I love Speak No Evil is one of the same reasons I love The Invitation. It feels so much to me like realistic horror where you're in these social situations, right? This couple's in this social situation, all their friends are there, and just something weird happens here or there that, it's not fully like, oh, I need to freak out and leave, but it's enough to make you uncomfortable. And it puts you in there's this social pressure and this social expectation in both this movie and Speak No Evil, where in every single scene, and I'm talking about both films here, honestly, in every single scene, you could stop after about 5 minutes when a scene cuts and say, what would you have done there? Like, what would you have felt? Now, a lot of people, this is what annoys me, right? This is why the Scream movies were created. Because so many people watch horror movies that have obviously never been in a horror situation in their real lives. And they are watching the movie and they say, oh, these people are so stupid. I would just get up and leave. And like that's what everyone says about everything, right? But I felt like the invitation, speak no evil, you realistically could stop at every scene and say, oh, hey, like, oh yeah, maybe we feel a little weird, but would you leave? Would you get out of there? Are you worth? Is it worth being rude? Is it worth ruining a weekend, a trip, a night? Like, how is this gonna mess up your reputation, the relationships with people around you? So that's really what this film does. Is putting you in an unsettling place, and you just every time you think something's wrong, you're asking yourself, maybe something isn't wrong. Maybe I'm being a little judgmental here. Maybe like who is the bad guy here? Like who's the person we need to be watching out for? Is it our protagonist who is clearly like having some serious like emotional problems coming back to his house? Like eh, it's a great movie that keeps you on your toes. The director of this movie went to go make Yellow Jackets, which a lot of people love. I couldn't get through the first season of Yellow Jackets, even though I love the concept. There's just some stuff in it I just wasn't a fan of, and I felt like there was a lot of woke stuff just being shoved down my throat throughout that series, and it was like half the series, so I couldn't get through. But I've heard a lot of people really like Yellow Jackets. So The Invitation, if you haven't seen it, it is a slow burn, but man, is it fantastic. So we'll stop there, and we will move on to our fourth. Lauren Ash says, I didn't really like Yellow Jackets. Yeah, join the club. I think it had like 2 or 3 seasons. Is it over now? I don't know. It might be, might not be. Hopefully it is. Cool concept. Should have been a movie. So many. And let me just give a sidetrack on some horror shows right now. It's very difficult to get into horror shows, right? Like I've watched the first full 2 seasons of American Horror Story, obviously the most popular, horror show you could say. My brother says this new show from a few years ago called From is fantastic. I watched 2 episodes of it, but horror is so hard to draw out for hours and hours and hours. That's why I had to really stop watching American Horror Story. Although guilty pleasures, same producer, Ryan Murphy did Scream Queens, and the first season of that, the only season really, is amazing. I think that's one of the really unique things about the genre of horror is like you need to pull people in fast, and typically a horror movie only lasts about an hour and a half, and you really need to make use of that time. And like that's why I feel like movies like The Invitation or basically every movie I've mentioned so far, like these wouldn't make great shows. And I often feel that with horror shows is there's a shock factor often early on, and then you're kind of grinding through, and there's the occasional cheap thrill here and there. So anyways, that's just my little side tangent on horror shows. Let's move on to the 4th movie here, and that is Sleepaway Camp. All right. This movie is awesome. Is it Camp Sleepaway, or I think it's Camp Sleepaway? Am I saying Sleepaway Camp? Let me double check that. Yeah, I said Sleepaway Camp. It is Sleepaway Camp. I feel like it should be Camp Sleepaway. I always call it Camp Sleepaway, but it's Sleepaway Camp. Okay, fine, cool. So this is the cult classic for anyone who hasn't seen it. If you are a true horror fan, you've seen this movie. If you have seen this movie, please don't spoil it in the chat because it's so great. And this movie, imagine it as Friday the 13th, but almost just like a pure comedy, but you don't know if it's a comedy or not. You can't tell if the acting's just terrible, if the writing's just terrible, if the characters are terrible, or if the outfits are terrible, and if it's all intentional or not. You can't look away from scenes. It's like a scene will start, and you'll see a character enter the screen, and the other character will enter the screen, and they'll say things like really awkwardly back and forth, like they're just terrible actors, and they're like clearly giving each other time to finish their lines, and then they'll depart. And it's like, it sounds terrible, but terrible, but it's honestly hilarious. Low budget film. It was made for like $300,000, and especially what happens is this movie is following this young girl who's at this camp, and she's very awkward. She's a loner, and all these people are constantly picking on her. She kind of finds herself in the midst of a Friday the 13th situation where a villain, and similar to Friday the 13th, this film is almost more of a mystery, right? After the first Friday the 13th, okay, Jason Voorhees is going around killing people. The first one is, wow, who is killing these camp counselors? And same thing here. Who's killing these camp counselors? Who's killing these other, kids that are at this camp? And she's sort of in the middle of it. Our character is, and trying to survive these close calls, and while also she's trying to figure out who's doing the kills as well. But it's like we can never fully find out because she's always trying to hide, and it's just a fantastic movie. And it's classic like 80s vibes, and there's no like, it's not like Friday the 13th where there's a bunch of like, counselors in bikinis like getting murdered, or any like hostile style gore porn or anything like that. Like it's really light as far as most things go. But it's just fantastic. It has just an amazing ending, and it's worth watching every scene. You can make a drinking game out of watching this movie. Watch it with other people. It's very funny, but it's totally worth watching. So this was really the top for this director. So not too much more to go off Sleepaway Camp. But if you're a big horror fan, you want something retro, you don't want something too scary, go watch Sleepaway Camp 1983. All right, we are going to move on to our final movie here. All right, and this is one of my personal favorite horror thriller movies. This is going to kind of be in that realm of revenge, right? Horror thriller, maybe a little mystery for sure. And this movie takes place in one of the most beautiful places in the world, Hawaii. And essentially, there's two newlyweds, and the movie is called A Perfect Getaway. It's from 2009. And we have newlyweds, and they're on a hike, this famous sort of lesser known trail in Hawaii, and they're trying to get to this beautiful beach, but it's a long hike. And so these newlyweds are there. They're kind of two normal people, and they end up meeting two really chatty couples on their trip. And so now, I will say, of all the movies I've mentioned, this movie has the most A to B list actors, I would say, right? We have Mila Djokovic, we've got Timothy Olyphant, we've got Steve Zahn, freaking Thor is in this movie, okay? They're all fantastic actors. They're all gravitating on screen. Like, there's 6 people, and you're drawn to all of them. And okay, so these 3 couples sort of meet up and are like, hey, we're all going to go down this trail together. Well, right before they're sort of going to depart on this trail, we get news from the guide who's about to send them off. He's like, hey, there's something that comes up like on the radio or on TV or something. So like a couple just murdered like another couple, and they are currently on the island. They're believed to be on this island where these couples are. And all 3 couples kind of get wind of this, and they're like, interesting. Well, like, we all came all this way to do this beautiful hike, so like we should probably do it. Like, it's a big island. Like, you guys aren't the killers, right? No. Okay. Thank you for telling me that you guys are not the killers. Okay, I feel much better now. So that is what this movie is. There's 3 couples, and the movie's trying to tell you, is one of these couples this killer couple? is there another killer couple that we don't see that's stalking them? And we're trying to piece together who and why, or one of these couples is trying to kill the other couples, or are they trying to kill the other couples, or are they just trying to blend in after they've killed? I don't know. The whole movie is just fun, entertaining. They shoot it from all the characters' perspectives. It's constantly pivoting. It's like we have our main protagonists that are trying to survive this scenario, but we're also constantly getting pivots from to the other couples, which is really fun. And it never like gives away anything. It just keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's a beautiful environment. The jungle in Hawaii is fantastic. It's honestly a lot of good fast cuts back and forth. Really good dialogue. Timothy Olyphant is especially special in this movie. Everyone else is great, but he really sticks out. He's got some amazing lines and really is like the screen grabber. I love Timothy Olyphant. He is awesome. So if you're looking for something fun, like I know a lot of families or parents don't like horror movies, and you're like, hey, I kind of want to watch a horror, but I know my family won't watch. Of all the movies I've really named today, this is one you can watch with your family, right? There's not really going to be a lot of gore or anything too bad. It's really just more thrilling and fun and sort of like a whodunit. And that's one of the things I love about horror movies, right? I like unique things. If you tell me like, hey, this movie is about three couples in Hawaii on an island going down a trail, and they think one of the couples might be a couple of murderers, but we're not. It's sort of a whodunit, but we're trying to reach this beach. Like that's I've never heard before, right? So often you go to you watch YouTube trailers, you watch whatever comes up in movie theaters or anything like that, and it's like how many times do we have to see like a demon movie, possession movie? How many times do we have to see like a Conjuring spinoff or a Saw spinoff? Like it's all just been so done. It's so overdone at this point. And so honestly, I like unique stuff like this. I like unique settings. Like if we're just even going over the settings from all the movies I've mentioned, like Revenge, we're talking about like a gorgeous getaway house in the middle of a desert. Like when have you ever really heard that in a horror movie? Hasn't really happened, right? High Tension is like out in farmland, like in the middle of nowhere. Like that one's kind of whatever. Invitation, like house in Beverly Hills, like very cool. I like that. Sleepaway Camp, classic, vintage. And then you get here, you get this beautiful Hawaii, but some horror thrown in there as well. McNeasy, welcome to the chat as I'm capping off my fifth here. McNeasy says, "Good Boy, film of the year." I cannot wait to watch that. Haven't seen it yet. Heard the dog's amazing. I'm a dog lover, so very excited to see Good Boy. As a quick recap of these films, we had top 5 horror films you probably haven't seen: Revenge, High Tension, The Invitation, Sleepaway Camp, and A Perfect Getaway. So those are your 5 movies. Go watch them. Come back to the Discord. Join the Discord if you haven't. Oh, me and Kenny are both so terrible at this, so I never mentioned this yet. But if you haven't subscribed, trying to grow the channel, trying to get to 100 subscribers, please subscribe. Like, it really, really helps the live stream. It helps the video afterwards. And any comment, share it, anything like that, super nice. And if you just know anyone who likes film, tell them to join our Discord. Join our Discord. Our Discord is so much fun. I will have the Discord in our description after this. So those are 5 films. I do have a few just sort of honorable mentions, since I think I have a little time. I know it took Kenny an hour and a half to go through 2 Dune films, and we're about 33 minutes in here, and we've gone through 5 movies. But I do have just a couple honorable mentions. If you're like, hey, Sam, I've seen all those, or I can't get them on the streaming services I have, I'm just going to shoot out a few. Okay, here's the list. Cobweb, that's on Hulu. Really interesting, fun, quick movie. Late Night with the Devil, that was a darling from last year. Like everyone kind of loved that movie in the horror sphere. Not the scariest movie, but an awesome, really well done movie. Joyride is a vintage classic. I believe it also has Steve Zahn in it. He's done a few horror films, so that's cool. These two movies are similar, but I'm gonna say Don't Breathe and Hush, very similar movies. If I had to pick one, man, they're both so good. I'd probably go with Don't Breathe, but Hush is awesome. I've never heard someone say a bad word about Hush. The Lodge is sort of like if you liked Hereditary, if you like that auteur style, like The Witch. The Lodge is sort of the last good auteur like horror film that I liked before I was really sick of that style where the movie's going too long and it's too artsy. But The Lodge definitely worth a watch. And then my last two, I'll say The Uninvited. This was a remake of a Japanese horror film. I actually love the American version. It's one of those movies you're questioning if it's a good movie the entire time or not. It's got Elizabeth Banks in it, and you're kind of back and forth on is this good, is this not? And it's one of the movies where like the ending makes the film, right? And it's a rare thing these days, like to sit through a movie you aren't sure if it's good or not, but if you can make it to the end, like the ending can make the film. That's that for sure. And then lastly is Creep. Creep is amazing. It is very scary, puts you very much on edge. I believe it's on Netflix right now, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of always there. The main actor in that movie is from The League, and I believe he also directed the movie. And he's directed like 6 or 7 movies, and I forget his name off the top of my head, but like he's an amazing director. I pretty much love everything he's done. I was like on a huge kick watching all his movies. And he's like a comedian, so that comedy to horror flex. And I guess before we sign off here, I did want to pitch this graphic novel for any of my nerdy, listeners out there. There's this book that I found about a year or two ago. It's called Through the Woods. I'll hold it up on the camera for anyone who's watching. It's called Through the Woods. It's by Emily Carroll, and it is awesome. It's like a short story graphic novel book of horror stories, and they're all original. They're all fantastic. The art's amazing. It really is like something really quintessential. If you're looking for something really unique and you're like, I don't want to read an entire horror book, but you want something fun and beautiful and thought-provoking and quick, Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. Absolutely fantastic. So there it is. That's all I've got for y'all. I hope you all enjoyed this podcast. And please, again, sub, like, comment, share, and join the Discord. So thanks so much, and have a good night. Happy Halloween. Oh, and happy birthday to me. This is my birthday.